Now, what does independent animation mean to you? Why do you love going this route? And what's something that you can tell the fans that they might not know about independent animation?
Wow. Okay. That's a lot to unpack. Well, you probably know I started out in independent animation. That's how I got into animation itself. It was something that uh, I stumbled into because I was mainly wanted to be a comic strip artist. Uh, but comic strips were really waning at the time, and they weren't, it was not so much of an exciting medium anymore. But I also found that it didn't really light me up as much so I I just assumed that I was going to have a quiet life of being an illustrator, um, which is fine. I was making enough money back then. You could make money as an illustrator. Uh, and I went to an animation festival and I saw, you know, this animation and I was like, oh, wow, this would be really fun. So I took a beginner animation class at a community college and things took off from there. So my first film was somewhat successful, which was shocking to me. And as I did more independent films, I actually sent something to Nickelodeon to try and get some funding to finish my film before they had Nicktoons and all that. I was just like, uh, and they asked me to come up with an idea for a show. So, um, and the mission was they set out a mission for me. They said, if you could see the way TV animation goes, how would it go? And so I created something that I would want to see on TV, and took a lot of my independent animation feeling and drive and inspiration into that. So my thing was with independent animation is that you were able to really go from your gut and really go from you weren't trying to please anybody. In fact, I didn't really even want to do TVA. That's an old story, but I thought here's an opportunity. But I didn't even think it was going to get picked up. So I just kept collecting the money for development and put it into my film to try and finish it. That's all I really cared about. Um, So the thing that I've always had a feeling about independent film was that it uh, it just felt free to me. It felt and I didn't sit well within the bondage of television. And at first, Nickelodeon was very open to just do whatever you want, but as soon as things started becoming successful, they started clamping down. And then the whole experience with Camp Lazlo was even more so. It was very corporate, and it just uh, it's like someone once said, success in that sense is like a wool sweater. It keeps you warm, but it itches like hell, and it was really itchy for me. So, but I had a family, and I went. My path went all over the place, and I did some children's books, and in my head there was this film that I kept wanting to make, and I would buy the latest thing that I started working in Flash, and it's like this is fucked up. I can't do this, and then I would buy something else, and like no no, and then there was something that came out. So I'm trying out all this tech, to see if I can because it was going into the digital realm and I didn't want to do cells anymore. So uh, I ended up, anyway, uh, after my third series, Let's Go Luna, the tech had finally caught up to where I felt like I could do it myself completely, almost completely. Um, and so I got back into independent film, and my God, it just kicked in again, and just the lights went, and bliss. It was just bliss. And I don't sit well, like I said, with people telling me what to do. I don't like that. But especially in art, I don't like that. But you got to pay the bills. I understand. And I had to pay bills. And I, you know, I'm on my third marriage, so you know. And now I have a farm in Belgium, which, pony food is expensive. So when when you think, but I'm at the tail end of my career. I don't really think of it as a career, but I'm an artist, and artists can work forever, so that's cool. And so well, your question was, what does it mean to me? I think I went all over the place with this answer.
That's okay.
Yeah. So what I went to go teach some there was an animation school here in Belgium, in Brussels, and they asked me to come do a master class, and I said sure. And they wanted to know about animation. They didn't want to know about, Rocko. Why is Rocko a wallaby? Tell us about Tom Kenny. How cool is he? Yeah, he's very cool. So they wanted to know about animation, and I just loved teaching it, and the structure of story for animation, the movement of animation. When I work on a film here, uh, and I'm really because the method I'm using now for this latest film I'm doing is like a painting. Every frame is like a painting, so I'm like paying attention to light source, I'm paying attention to shading, expressions in certain modes of light. And and then the action, I'm doing all sorts of things with action. And I go to tell someone about it, and there's nobody here except goats, and they don't really care. So I decided to do this class on independent animation because I just get lit up by it. And uh, I think it's one of those things, though, that either you love it or you don't. I remember going to, when we were doing Rocko, I would go to Korea a lot, and I would hang out with the animators and in the Korean studios, and I would say, "You guys get to do the fun stuff," and they would look at me like, "Are you on drugs?" Like, because they thought that we were giving them the dreg work that nobody else wanted to do, right? But I love it, and I find it very meditative work, and that's another thing for me. I mean, what else is better than sitting in a converted cow stable and making films? I think that's pretty cool. I remember talking to Cordell Barker, who was a really great Canadian animator. He had just done The Cat Came Back for the Film Board of Canada. I'm really dating myself here, but he goes, yeah, he goes, I got a grant from Canadian Film Board, and then I just renovated my house while I worked on this film. And I go, oh my God, that is like heaven. So then I find myself renovating a farm in Belgium and animating on a film. And it's like, okay, I guess I went to heaven. This is heaven.
It's like life imitating art or
Yeah,
art
I mean,
imitating
it's one
life.
of those things that maybe if you set out your, but it's weird because the film that ended up the film that I did coming back was Fiego and the Magic Fish, which I had been working on for a long time. Uh, because I started working on it after Rocko was over, and it was kind of in my therapy for my first wife committed suicide, and I had a lot of fallout mentally from that. But for
Mhm.
some reason, the fisherman and his wife story came into my head and it was about, but it was in a twist of what the fisherman thought his wife needed to be happy and what she really needed,
Mhm.
and which are two different things. So that's really how the basis of the film started and how I started writing it. And I would do some work on it, and then I would put it aside, and I would do some work on it and put it aside. And I actually recorded a whole, uh, I recorded a bunch of dialogue with Carlos Alazraki and Jeff Bennett and uh, an Irish, at the time it was Irish, and I scrapped it all and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote. So what's out there? So it had a really good festival run. We won like 10 or 11 top awards. Yeah, and so now I'm deep in my next film, which is like a Norse mythology. But I don't know if that answers your question or
Oh,
what
it does.
ramble.
And I we talked very loosely about it because, like I said, I don't think you had put that out to anybody to purchase or they could watch it. I know it was doing the festival run the last time we talked, and I just watched it last night in between the many power outages we had. I had to go out on my back porch. Where I live at is such a horrible spot for any kind of cell reception. So if you don't have Wi-Fi, you're fucked, right? So I'm
Right.
sitting out there. I don't know if you remember, was it it wasn't Tommy Boy, it was Black Sheep. They're trying to get a cell connection on the top of a mountain. Then he gets up to the mountain. Chris Farley falls down the mountain. They finally find it. That's what it felt like last night. But I remember watching this. As soon as I was done, I rewatched it. And I go, holy shit, the colors, beautiful. The art, fantastic. The story was amazing. I find myself, especially now, I just turned 36 a couple months ago, and then watching everything, and I keep hearing these quotes. I consistently remind myself, it's all a process. It's all a part of the plan. Shit's gonna happen, right? You're gonna get two steps ahead, and then life's gonna kick you four steps back, right? So, watching this, it really felt like everything that I've been telling myself for the last couple weeks, because it's just like when life hits you hard, and then it keeps hitting and it keeps hitting, and you can either get up or you can sink, swim or sink, right? So I'm watching this, and it's just like I said, it was just this positive what was not a reformation, just keep going is what I got from it. But it's like you tell a story and it does everything a good story should do. It's got heart, it's got laughter, it's got these beautiful just scenes. Like you said, your new film is like everything is like a painting, like each scene. That's what this one felt like. Have you thought about making Fiego and the Magic Fish an illustrated book? Because I think it would be
Mhm.
really cool to do. I mean, like I said, that's what it felt like. I'm watching this and it felt like a story. Like obviously it's a storybook from the Brothers Grimm. It's your telling of that. But it's just like that's what it felt like. It felt like I was being read or being shown a book.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you for all that. When you were saying that, for some reason, so I'm thinking, okay, so I went through this long journey of volume animation,
Hmm.
and and also was able to work with all these really great artists and writers and sound people and colorists and I knew some when I came in, but I really knew a lot when I was done.
Hmm.
And but the thing is that you were always on a deadline,
Yeah.
and I would sit down to work out a scene in television and say, God, I wish I had more time to do this because this
Hmm.
would be awesome. And that would be like in the art direction, it could be in the writing, it could be in, but it was just like we had to just get it out there, get it out there. The beast needs
Hmm.
to be fed, is what we used to always say. The beast needs to be fed. So sitting down to do animation in an independent form and not having it was funny because I actually had to put up signs in front of myself to slow down because I was still like in this, I got to get it done. I got to get it done. Well, you just take it easy, So I was able to sit down and say, this scene would really work well if I did, blah, 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 or this color would really work well. So, but I'm going to have to go back in and redo all this color. Okay, do it, and that's how I approached it. So thank you for, um, I, it's funny, but a lot of it I do for my own enjoyment. Most of it I do for my own enjoyment. I don't. So there are, when the guys were doing the sound effects, I had Mike Mancuso do the sound effects, and Myra Stam did the music, and they would go through their work prints and they would notice these little details. And I know that nobody else probably noticed them. Maybe you did, you watched it a couple times. But they would find these little things, and oh yeah, I put that in to make myself laugh. Nobody else is going to see that, I know. But I made myself laugh, and that's really what it's all about. That's really like, that's that's what I'm excited about doing a class. I'm trying to convey uh, is that doing it for yourself instead of the gatekeepers and the people making decisions and giving you notes and all that stuff. That that's where you really find yourself and you really get into your core uh, sweet spot. You know, and that's what I hope. I hope because I really feel that independent animated film has always led the way in inspired stuff that ends up in mainstream. And I think a lot of mainstream is, it goes through its points where it's stale. I think we're kind of in there now a bit. And
Oh,
and
we've been in there for a little while.
yeah, and the industry has slowed down and said, let's regroup because I thought we knew the formula, but we don't know the formula. What happened? Like, no, you didn't know the formula. Okay. There is no formula. There's heart. All right.
Hmm.
Get to know that. And that's another thing. The difference between my experience on Rocko, the executives, even though I had some run-ins with some of the executives, they still looked at the creator of the show as the heart of the show. Okay.
Hmm.
They still looked at the human element of bringing creativity to it because there were, um, all a lot of the other, Craig McCracken and Igor Kololov, I'm butchering his name, were brought into television from the independent film world. Um, Danny Antonucci, he did Lupo
Hmm.
and the Butcher. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure,
Yep.
but he did Ed, Ed and Eddie, so
Hmm.
they really were looking at the creators of these shows as artists, as artists with passion. And slowly it got to where there was such a long line of people out there wanting their own shows, they started looking at them as cattle. And then you could be a creator of a show without ever animated anything yourself, which was unheard of in the 90s. Um, and then by the time I did Lazlo, there was this corporate philosophy that was like, we don't give a shit about these creators. They can just be
Hmm.
pushed aside, you know?
Next man up.
Yeah. And there's always, 1,000 more that'll take his or her place. So, who cares? And it was really a factory situation. And it was actually funny when I did Static Cling, the Rocko special, they kept asking me, well, who's going to be your director? Well, I'm going to be the director. Oh, really?
Yeah, fucker, I've been doing this for a while.
Who's going to design the, well, I'm going to design. What? So, but I was also doing my other show, Luna. I had done the pilot, so I said, I'll try and be there as much as possible. But so I'll hire a co-director. I hired Cosmos Segerson. But when I showed up to the offices of Nickelodeon, Cosmo had this huge fucking office, like with these huge windows, because he was the director. And then I was the creator of the show. I got this little tiny cubicle. And I go, wow, this is gone of a long ways from when I did Rocco. But that was kind of the way, okay, the creator just, gives us the idea and then we'll take it from here. Thank you very much. And they would go run off with it. Anyway, long story, but I feel that's what's happened in a lot of like, I feel like the TV shows are all looking the same. They're all the same concept. They're all, and animated features, so we need independent film to really go in and stir up the pot. We really need the freshness of independent film. Throw all that other stuff away for now, uh, and let's get a reboot. Huh? It's and
Yes.
so that's what I'm hoping that I can try and instill some people to really go inside and not say, I want to be famous and I want to be a show creator. Let me tell you something. They don't give a shit about you.
Mhm. We found that out, and we're finding that out more and more now. I mean, I don't know if obviously you got to work with a lot of these guys that I'll bring up, but Gendy in particular, right? He went the route of showing people on social media a film that's been shelved. I don't know if you saw it or if you follow Gendy, but he has this beautiful, like the last 2 weeks, Sony doesn't want it. Sony shelved it. The Black Knight. Have you seen what he's been doing with the Black Knight? So
But I
this is
like
this
Andy.
film. It is. How that man does not have the green light for him to go to any studio and they'll go, here's a bunch of money, come up with something. How he
Yeah,
does not have the fucking green light to do
yeah,
that
yeah,
in 2025, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
Dexter, art directed on Powerpuff Girl. Samurai Jack alone gives you carte
Oh
blanche.
my
If I had
God.
all of the money in the world, I mean, there's a reason that Jack is in the middle of my wall back here. There's a
Awesome.
reason. It's the bar,
Awesome show.
right?
Yes.
You know, and
Yes.
he wanted to do Popeye. Huge fan of Popeye. They said no. So what does he do? He goes and makes unicorns, and then it's got a lot of Popeye references. It's got a lot of that art style, and then he goes and makes Primal, and then he goes and does the Hotel Transylvania. So he's done all of the stuff that you want a creator to do. He's one of the last guys that can do everything in an animated series, just like yourself, from start to finish. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
he started releasing the stuff with the Black Knight. I implore you guys, ladies and gentlemen, go and support this. Go and hit like, go and hit a comment. Tell Sony how fucking retarded they are. And I know I'm gonna get shit for using that word, but tell them how stupid they are for not giving this the light of day. I mean, it's baffling, and it's the same thing with you. It's these animated companies go and they push you guys out. They go and they take somebody that is a little genius that can do everything. That's not one of those guys that just give me an idea, go sit in the office and make money. You want to be a part of the process. You want to come in here and do something that's different. You want to push the status quo. You want to flip the table, right? It's like playing Monopoly with your younger brothers and they're beating the shit out of you. You want to flip the fucking table and start over, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know much about independent animation. I still don't know much about it. I'll go in, I'll check in. Having two small kids and an older kid is very difficult to find any time to do anything, right? But your film alone that I just watched yesterday twice has pushed me into the route where like I want more like this. I want something different. I don't want cookie cutter cartoons. I want something that one has feel, two doesn't feel like AI is pushing everything, where it feels
Mm-hmm.
very soulless. It feels very heartless. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
I talk to so many artists week in and week out. And the guys and the gals that I talk to from the 90s, like yourself, they all tell me the same thing. Back in the 90s, we were so free. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have people going, hey, we can't say, hey, we can't do. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
make something. They knew what they hired. They hired an artist. They said, do your job, and then we'll
Mm-hmm.
do our job. And then the networks would
Mm-hmm.
do their job. And then somewhere along the way, we lost our fucking way. I
Mm-hmm.
say we as a pejorative because I'm not in the industry. I'm just a fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's all if you want to play within that confine of conglomerates. But I didn't really feel like I got pushed out. I just left I went to PBS because it was commercial free and was service to kids. But that was my last show. But um, the thing is that yeah, they invite you to the party in a way, and then they tell you exactly what to do, and but they have no writing experience. They have no animating experience. They have these
They
executives are
just
pushing,
graduated. They
huh?
want their name on. They just graduated. They want their
Right,
name
right.
on
Well,
something.
but they're given a job and they're looking for job security, so they have to say, well, we were in charge of this, so that's why it's so fucking great.
Hmm.
Um, But as long as they are keep giving notes and giving, and then deciding what your creative idea should be, it's all going to be fucked up. It's just, I'm sorry. The executives do not have that. They should know when to step aside. And but that's saying I don't have any say, so you're going to fire me, and I don't want that. I've got, you know, college tuition to pay back my student loan. So that's what you have. You have people fighting for their lives in the
It's a rock and a
executive
hard
world.
place.
Yeah. So that's not in service to animation. That's not in service to entertainment. That is in service to their own. They're afraid of people finding out that they're a fraud. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
I'm being a little harsh. There are some good executives. I will say that. Um,
Linda Saminsky comes to
Linda
mind.
Saminsky is one of them. Chris Viscardi was great, but now he got sick of the politics. I think he's doing something different now. But he was also the one of the creators of a show in now I've lost the name of it, but it was a live action show in Nickelodeon in the 90s. So we knew each other back then. But yeah. So yeah, I think the there's so many things that are wrong with the industry, but you know, everything is a transition. You have to like see the dark. You see the light better when you see the dark, as they say. Um,
Yeah, you
and
need
so
one without
people,
the other.
but yeah, so if people see how messed up something can get, maybe they are more. But I also think that I mean you're doing a service, giving a place to talk about this on your podcast because what I found with Fiego that a lot of the media would not they don't give a shit about an independent film unless it gets an Oscar. You know, there was one very prominent, I won't say the name of it, but it's a very prominent website for cartoons and
Hmm.
animation. And they said they don't cover independent film unless it's offered for free on YouTube.
Dude, that's so stupid.
And I was like, You have a problem with independent filmmakers trying to get a fair, exchange for all the work that they put in? That's why I put it on Vimeo. I don't ask for much, but I think I don't like to have commercials on my YouTube, but so you give all this press space to the latest, Disney Pixar film or the latest, whatever. But a little independent filmmaker, you won't give the time of day for unless, okay. And even then they'll say it's being offered for free. That's why we're gonna just put it in our choices. But
That's such a
animation,
stupid way to
I
look at
know,
it.
I know. Because a lot of their money is made from like
Yeah,
like
the
I
big
got,
conglomerates.
yeah, there was an animation magazine that Lazlo was on the cover of, and I found out later they bought that cover. It wasn't an editorial decision to put Lazlo on the cover. Cartoon Network bought it, which is a way a lot of them work, you know. But anyway, Animation Magazine did a nice piece on Fiego. I was very appreciative of that, and uh, everybody else turned it down. Everybody else said no. So,
Well,
but
they're
you know,
lost, dude.
whatever.
It's a beautiful. I told you this
Thank you.
before we hit record, and then I told you after we hit record. Like it's I don't know what I was expecting when I turned it on because, like I said, I don't get to watch too much stuff as it is now. So I'm very I don't want to say guarded, but I'm very precious, even though I've been told don't be precious with your drawings. I'm very precious with my time when it comes to
Mm,
things.
mm,
And I want more like this because, like I said, it had everything you look for in anything. It got me right out of the gate. I was like, All right. I love the little bubbles coming on the screen. I don't know what it is about what you guys do that just hook, line, and sinker, no pun intended, gets me right out of the gate. Maybe it's the color. Like I love color. And watching this, like I was amazed by the story. I was amazed by the humor because, like I said, it made me feel like I was watching something that I've seen before, but I know I haven't seen something like this before, right? And I laughed my ass off, especially towards the end when the fish is getting bigger. Spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, go and watch this movie before you listen to any of this, and then come back and listen to the rest of this because I don't want to spoil anything. But when he's going back and forth trying to make his wife happy, and you can see the fish getting madder, he gets bigger, he ends up burning the whole fucking city down. But him coming in each time he wants a bigger boat, a better boat, and that's such a message about how we are as a people. Everybody thinks that what we're searching for is something that is tactile, right? If I get a bigger car, if I get a bigger boat, if I get a bigger house, I'm going to be happy. And that
Mhm.
book and that film shows you that it doesn't matter what you do. If you're not happy with where you're at in life, if you're not happy with just enough, or you're not happy with like, hey man, I don't need the new iPhone. I don't need the new Lexus. I don't need the new fucking 4-story house. Doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what you get. You're not going to be happy. But the scene that made me laugh out loud so many times because I went back and rewound it was him coming back to the fish. I think it was for like the second time, or maybe it was the third time. And he's got his little cigar sticking up, and his face is all like he's looking up, like because he's from the upper crust now. And
Mhm.
then he would point over, and then right at the last, before the fish burnt the whole city down, he smacks him in the eye with the stick the last time before the fish just goes ape shit. I laughed my ass off so much at that part. Like I said, this film is going to lead me into going to watch more independent animation because and I know not everything is going to be as good as this, but I'm going to give it more of a chance now because this is what I can expect. I can expect somebody that's, like I said, not shackled by a company, that's not shackled by, hey, we need to get this done now. Not giving you enough time to breathe, not giving you enough time to work that out, not giving you enough time to rework a scene that might not work by the end of it. You know what I mean? So if anything
Yeah.
you've done, you've pushed me to watch more independent animation, and I thank you for that.
Well, that's great. If I've only done that, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
No,
Um,
I appreciate the fuck out of this film, dude. Like I said, I wish it was double the length. I wish it was triple the length. I had such a fun time in 11. And I know that's a lot of fucking work, but it's like I had such a great time with this.
yeah, especially thinking about it because I'm going into my third year on this new film I'm doing. Um, but it's longer. But but it's interesting because some of the festivals you said, I think I've seen some of this before. That's because I'm in love with old school gags, and they called sometimes some of the reviewers at festivals, some of the jury would say it's old school animation, but it's great. And because I'm in love with Chuck Jones gags and Tex Avery gags and even some of the old Film Board of Canada gags, Hill Farm and Richard Conde. Um, but that's what lights me up. So that's like if people say, well, it's just that, that's been done before. But I love it, so I'm gonna do it. And I don't care. I don't
You should
care. I'm
keep doing it.
sorry.
No,
I
don't
am
care.
enjoying it. So, if the audience, because there are some festivals, there were a couple big festivals that didn't accept Fiego, and I think it's because it was too old school. I think it wasn't as progressive as they wanted or as artsy as they wanted, which when I discovered about festivals, it's like a curator of a museum. Either you're right for the Guggenheim or you're or right for the Main Street Museum of Oddities. You don't. There's too many.
There's no
There's
in
too many
between.
different curators to say, this is not for us or this is for us. So, in the sense, festivals are gatekeepers too. And I actually found myself falling into that trap a little bit of saying, I really wanted to get into this festival. What is it that they're looking for? And like, no, 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 no. You can't think like that. You can't think like that. I'm not going to cater to what they're looking for. That's like taking me out of my artistic spot. And that's not an artistic creative decision, right? But you do, because there are certain festivals I really love that I've been to, that my other films actually had been to that didn't accept Fiego, and I was bummed. I was a little bummed. My music guy actually bought a ticket to Annecy, assuming that it was going to get in, and it didn't get in. So, but
That
you,
is baffling, by the way.
well, you know,
I don't get it, dude.
Ottawa and Annecy both didn't accept it, and they're the two biggest animation festivals. Which, okay, I don't know. Maybe I'm also shedding my TV skin. Maybe they're looking at me as, oh, he's just a TV guy who's dabbling because he's in between gigs and he's just dabbling in independent film. That's okay. Whatever.
They didn't do their homework then because you started an independent.
Yeah, well, they don't have time to do homework on everything.
Oh, they've got plenty. They've got plenty of time. Like I said, the reason I brought up Gendy earlier, carte blanche, dude, green light, go. You know what I mean? If you're a sports fan, right? You think they give Michael Jordan like, don't take this one, Mike. Go ahead and sit this one out. Pass it to no. If he gets the ball, fucking go is what he's told to do. It's the same thing with so many of you guys. You know what I mean? It's just I'll never understand, hiring somebody. And I've learned this more so over the last few months working in a new job. Like I'm running a small diner that's a very busy diner. And like I said, it's just you hire people and you hire people not so you can make them work like you. You hire people so one, they take shit, no pun intended, off of your plate. You
Hmm.
give them the opportunity and then you give them money to do what they came in here to do. And more so watching all of these cartoons and then going and listening to all of these talks that I've had, especially with some of you guys that was in the 90s, that was in the 80s, that was hired to do a specific job and they let you do that job. It is still baffling to me that somebody like yourself, one, doesn't go, Joe wants to put his film at our festival, and we're going to go, nah, nope. Uh, like I said, it's just baffling to me, dude. So I'm glad you're going the independent route because, like I said, I want to watch more independent films. And I should have known that I would have wanted to watch more independent films because when I go and buy my comics every week, DC and Marvel have started slipping more and more and more out of my pull list. It's a lot of the Image books, it's a lot of the IDW books, it's a
Right.
lot of those. Maybe it's a franchise that they've bought and they're retelling, but it's a different storyboard artist, or excuse me, it's different artists, it's different writers that didn't get the love in DC and Marvel. And then they have this following now, and then Marvel and DC are starting to scoop up these writers and these artists that were on these independent books. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's baffling to me. I keep using that word that I hate that word at this point. It's the fourth
But
time I've used it.
the thing is that a lot of people are like now up in arms about AI, which, I agree with a lot of the argument. But tech in general has created an opportunity for all these artists because a lot is happening in self-publishing. These
Mhm.
people, these artists can do their own, graphic novels and their own comic books and their own. I mean, it's awesome. But the same thing is an independent film. With all the tools out there, you can do your own. Because I almost did the whole thing myself, and I'm not really tech. I'm not a techie,
Mhm.
and I was able to understand all of it. It gives that opportunity for all of us to do that. Whereas before, you had to get a grant, or you had to, and applying for grants is like, I don't even want to go there. But or get someone involved. I knew a lot of people who wanted to fund my films, but they wanted to own it at the same time. It's not, I said, no, it's not going to happen. I've had too many conglomerates owning my film, my work. I'm not doing that anymore. But so I'm saying and the comic industry is like that now, where you can make your mark. You can, there are comic book companies that have, were starting from the ground up with the artists who did them and created a rival to Marvel and created
Mhm.
rivals to, and we're competing with them. because they were able to do it and be a part of that whole game. And now with streaming, now with and the tech tools, and you know, it's open. It's open to people who have something to say and have something to feel and put out there. So in that sense, tech has really given.
Level the playing field.
Yeah, but you look at, okay, organically as a creative, you might say, I don't, it's gonna lessen my creative organic, uh, but it doesn't if you do it right. You know, if you do the animation software that I use, you can do hand draw. It's just like hand drawn. I
Mhm.
hand paint everything. I hand draw everything. I don't do any animation in betweening tools or I'll do things in Photoshop for backgrounds that replicate certain brushes and stuff, but you're still got your hand
Mhm.
on the brush, and I love it. And I've gotten spoiled by it because I do some painting traditionally, and I keep hitting the undo button.
Can I ask you a personal question about your it's about animation. Um, but something you said earlier in the episode, it's just like you were working with this company, and they want you to do a certain thing and you want to do a certain thing. Now, obviously, when you go the independent route, you can do whatever the fuck you want because you're funding it, you're doing it, you don't have to answer to somebody. But back then, how difficult is it to still have a piece of yourself go on the TV when you have to go through so many filters? Like me, if I would get told how to season, what to do, yada, 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 every day I go to work, I would have quit a very long time ago because it's like I said, you hire me to do my job. Let me get out of my way and let me do my job. Let me do what you hired me to do. But for you in particular, how hard was it for you to see what they wanted and still try to be true to one, your vision, two, your show, and three, you by the end of the day? How'd you lay your head down at the pillow at the end of the night going, I still got to do what I wanted to do, even though they had their notes, but I still got to be me and put me on a screen. How do you work with that? Because I know there's a lot of artists that ask that question.
Uh, Rocco, I hardly had any of that
Hmm.
of them, but I have to say, and this is going to sound like a real spoiled, that I was a spoiled shit, but I walked many times
Yeah.
because I said, don't give me this shit. I'm not going to do that. You invited me to this party, so you're not going to tell me how to enjoy this party.
Hmm.
You know, anyway, I took very little notes, and when they did give me a note, we kind of made fun of it, like saying that we needed to have a strong female character with a hook, and that's how we invented Dr. Hutchinson. Um,
Hmm.
that was an executive. Yeah. The only thing that just really grates on me that
That's fucking great, by the way.
was an executive decision was when they said we can't have Rocco yellow because we have a big toy company that wants to do plushes and they don't want it to be yellow. And that's always like really that's always sat with me as a big issue. But but I don't see how somebody can, because I do know creatives who tried to play the game and they didn't get anything from it except for a paycheck, which to some of them was that's all they wanted. And that's you play the game, you know. And then the executives say, "Well, your show sucks. We're taking it off the air because no one's watching it." Well, why?
Hmm.
Because you guys gave so many notes and they just played the game and took the notes. That's why. Uh, so yeah, if it got to where, because back then also I came from independent film and I lived very frugally. Fruit, is
Hmm.
that a word? Frugally?
Hmm.
I was
It is
very,
now.
I was frugal. Um, and so when I started doing Rocko, I just put every penny I had into the bank. I didn't spend any of it. And so at a certain point, it's like, "Ah, fuck this. I'm going to go back to my independent films. I don't need this shit. If you guys are going to come in here and say that I should do more of this or do that or do this, go find someone else to do that. That's like so. But every time I quit, they would make some changes and pay me more money.
Every time I try to get out, they pull you right back in. What would be
Yeah,
some advice you would give an
that was
artist
when
that,
they valued the creator. No, but now they wouldn't do that. And I also think that there's something that they started realizing is that because I also at one point my lawyer goes, okay, he's gonna because I would fight for a bigger budget because some of the people weren't getting paid what they should be, and then and then my lawyer would say, well, he's gonna quit, so when he quits, you're gonna have to hire a new story editor, you're going to have to hire a new director of, you're going to have to hire a new head writer, you're going to have to, and they would start realizing, okay, this is, okay, let's just get Joe back. And, okay, all right. All right. But I think after those experiences with some of these creators, they started saying there's too much power in the creator. So let's cut that off because it's going to kill us. Right. And I think that's also when Steve Hillenburg, after I don't know how many seasons, I think it was 4 seasons, he said, I'm leaving. I think the show should end. SpongeBob. They said, no, this show's making too much money. We're not going to just end it because you say And there was nothing he could do, but that was his choice. So, but he still stayed on as executive producer, and he actually ended up doing an independent film during that
mhm.
time where he just left. And but they showed that was when it was too big for a creator to say, you know, that this should end, like I did after 4 seasons. But Rocco wasn't doing SpongeBob numbers by any stretch, so they were like, okay, you know. That answer your question?
Yeah, I got one more. If I because I know, like I said, there's a lot of folks that listen to this that are either trying to break into the industry, they're a fan of animation, or they're in the industry right now. So with all the things that you've found throughout your career, both inside the industry and then on your outside, on the independent side, right? Working with and working against, or working with and then just not wanting to work with companies. What's some advice that you can give some artists right now that's really trying to, one, stay true to them, be the artist that they want to be, but also two, might not be able to go, shit, well, I'm just gonna walk. What's something you wish you could have told yourself at 20 years old?
Um, for one thing, let me just say, because I'm watching my two daughters in their 20s trying to navigate this world, as opposed to when I was in my 20s. It's an expensive world, right? A
Mhm.
lot more expensive. We didn't have to worry about cell phones and iPhones and Netflix subscriptions. And technically, you don't need those things, but you um, it's very expensive and rent everywhere. And I bought a house on an illustrator's income. That's crazy. Okay, that's in the 80s. Can't do that anymore. Uh, so it was easier for me, I think, to say, no, this is what I'm choosing. And I didn't have a family then either. So after having a family, you start making other choices. The thing is, what I try, because I actually just did a video because I feel so I did a video on my independent class, and I said, there's no conglomerates, no executives, you get to do your own thing. I had some people come to me and go, so well, how am I going to make money? just like what you're talking about. Like
Mhm.
if I go for my gut, I understand working in the industry, but I also understand that doing your own thing, doing your own film, when I was hiring, and I'm not saying everybody who hires it was like me, if you did your own film, you were on the top of the list for me because it showed so many things about you. And
Mhm.
it showed that you did all the jobs that are in production. So you're going to know that job better than if you're hired in the industry. You're a self-starter. You have you have something to say creatively. So like I hired Steve Hillenberg from an independent festival. I found him at Ottawa. He had wormholes in the festival, and I was like, this guy's amazing. And but you have to be able to see that because the executives couldn't see it. They didn't want me to hire Steve. But so it's kind of a feathering, I feel, if you have industry jobs, because industry jobs are very nomadic. Okay, you're going from oasis to oasis. There's a lot of desert in between. And so,
Mhm.
and I actually, it was a really bad joke, but I said, if you have downtime, turn it into an uptime. That's like a really bad commercial. But turn it into an uptime. What's really bad? But if you have downtime, work on something yourself. Work on an
Mhm.
independent film. Work on something that is your own vision. That is your own because you're keeping that alive, right? You're you have to keep your soul alive. And I also say, industry jobs are good for feeding your stomach, but not for feeding your soul. Really,
Mhm.
it's not.
It's a t-shirt.
It's very naive to think that as an artist, you know, but Aunt Tilda loves it because she can tell everybody that her son or her daughter is working at Disney. They love to do that. But I understand pain bills, and so I just would recommend that you have a feathering of soul enriching work that you can go to, and even if it's working a little bit at a time, and then if you get, maybe you're in between gigs, you start working fuller on it, and then also it does something to your vibration. If I want to get woo woo for a minute, because if you're not in a place of lack, because a lot of times when you're without work, you're in a lack place. You're like, oh my God, I'm never going to get another job. But I also found this is actually this when I was doing illustration work, I could live off of 4 good jobs a month, okay? And because I did a lot of advertising work also, which paid very well. But in between jobs, I would be like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get another job. And but when I started animating, I would do my illustration job and I would run over to my other part of my office and I would start animating again. And I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about whether I was going to get another job or not because I was really in the moment and I really loved what I was doing. But the jobs would start going more and more and more because I wasn't like in this place of lack. If you're like into The Secret or anything or manifestation, you know, whatever, if you believe that. But I really feel like being in a place of lack keeps you in lack. Being in a place of abundance is abundance, and doing something that you love is abundance. That's my spiel.
Oh, it's good. It's good in its wise words, man, because I've always been told, if you're working for a company, I mean, you got to kind of do what they ask you to do
Right.
within reason.
Sure. Yeah.
But you need to have that same kind of energy for yourself when you come home, right? If you're in a perfect example, if you're in a work or if you're in a job, maybe you love the field, but you don't necessarily love the company. You said
Right.
you got to pay the bills, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, you got to pay the bills. Food is expensive. Everything is expensive, like you just
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Put the same kind of energy and the same kind of time into you and what you're doing to better you than you do with that you do with the day job, right? So I do this stuff. I mean, it's 3 in the morning when we started talking here in Florida. I
Yeah.
love talking to folks like yourself because you guys gave me so much joy. There's quite a few characters that you worked on that are up on my wall that at some
Mhm.
point in time did something for me, whether it made me laugh when I was a kid, whether it made me laugh or forget, not forget that my family was all by themselves when I was deployed, but you would give me time to like reprieve. You would give me time to like decompress when I'm deployed, or I'm having a tough time. I lost a family member. I needed something to laugh at when I didn't think I could laugh. Pop on Rocko, pop on Camp Lazlo, pop on
Mhm.
Samurai Jack. Like you guys do so much for me. So like when you said it was an ungodly hour when I got up to do this thing, like I'd legitimately have fun doing this. Sleep will come eventually. I don't need much. 4 hours and I'm good to go all day. I got all of the energy, right? So I love doing this stuff when one, everybody is asleep because I can focus on whoever I'm talking with. Two, I
Mhm.
love doing this after hours because, like I said, you guys gave me something very special. And I'm trying to repay that back by, giving as much knowledge as I can from you guys through me to them, to anybody else that'll listen. So, ladies and gentlemen, invest in yourself is what we're really getting at. If you want to do something, just do it.
Yeah.
Joe said it, if it's just for a little bit, fucking 10 minutes a day. Then it'll
Yeah.
slowly tick up to 20, 30, and then 40, Just try to find time, invest in yourself.
Yeah. And the thing is that when you do things for yourself and things that light you up and you enjoy, there's a good possibility they're gonna get to a place where they're gonna support you.
Hmm.
Some of these things, but not all of them are money making. But if there's a possibility of something happening where, you know, people start gravitating to you, I firmly believe that people gravitate to work that's from your soul more so
Hmm.
than a conglomerate telling you what to do. So, yeah, yeah, I totally agree with that.
And I can't agree more. So as we start to wind down here, I know you said you were working on, or actually you're working currently. Yeah, working on makes it sound like it's not out, but you're out with the master class that you're working on, independent animation. All of
Yes,
the stuff that you've learned, your career up to date, and you're going to help people try to realize that you don't have to go the Cartoon Network, the Nickelodeon, the Disney route. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. You could do this stuff with yourself with a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of time, a little bit of money. And I don't want to say little in a demeaning way, but it's just like everything costs something, ladies and gentlemen. So,
yeah.
with that being said, I would love for the fans to know one more about your masterclass, two, where they can find it. We'll finish with some fans' questions, and then we'll get out of here for the day, man. But how does the whole masterclass come up for you?
How does it come up? Well,
Hmm.
yeah. So you can go to joemurraystudio.com and it's got the whole layout of what I'm offering. So yeah, I've taken everything that I've learned from all the great geniuses that I've worked with and put it into this class. And so there are things that are transferable to the industry work, but there's also things that will help you find your own voice, and that's inspiration and voice is really the whole thing that I'm trying to say and to teach. And so there are video lessons, but there's also Zoom classes, live
Hmm.
classes, which we're going to have to figure out because there's a lot of time zones already in the class. It's filling up fast. So if you want to grab it, there's still an early bird rate.
Hmm.
uh, and we're gonna have a lot of fun. I know it, but and it's for all levels because I love working with beginners and I love working with professionals. So I think there's something there for professionals as well, especially who want to flex their muscle, their own creative inspiration muscle. Which, if you work for a while in the industry, you need to flex that muscle. Um, yeah, joemurraystudio.com.
Yep. And those links will be down below, ladies and gentlemen, so you can point, click, and go, and then you can sign up for Joe's class. All right, now we got some fans questions. Bryce over before I do this, because Bryce is from our Patreon channel. Have you thought about doing a Patreon as well? I don't know if you have one.
I did
We
try
might have
Patreon.
talked.
I think we
Okay,
last time we
I think we did talk about it.
yeah, last time when we talked, I was just thinking about doing a Patreon, and you helped me to put the word out. But uh, I found myself, you know, I found that most of the people wanted to talk about Rocko and Lazlo. I tried to put some independent
Mm,
stuff in there, but most of it was Rocko and Lazlo, and I just really wasn't into it. I'm sorry.
I got you. Oh, no, you're fine. So with that, I know because now this is all flooding back. I remember us talking about this. There was quite a few people out there that had written in, and I meant to send you those messages. I'd have to go back and like really dig through everything and find them. There was some people that had mentioned, you could possibly do a YouTube channel as well. Like even if you were just drawing something, record it, pop it up there, and then you're just walking through a painting or how you approach a scene, yada yada yada. So that could be something you use for the masterclass as well, because there's quite a few people that want to know your process, where you start, where you finish, how you kind of mold and work with characters within a scene and things like that. So I'm pretty sure you've already got all this stuff written down and you're already going through the books and putting stuff in there. But I know there were some people from the last time we chatted that wanted to know more about your process in that sense. Now we got Bryce here. Um, He's like, I know it's a generic. You'll most likely touch on the details of the course anyways, but I'm curious as a participant of the class will be strictly instructional or if there's any assignments for us to work on based on the curriculum. And then he had a follow up to that one, and he said, "Will be Joe be giving feedback on our personal projects or the one-on-one interactions restricted to the 3 Zoom calls? So, will they have any homework? And then will you be able to take a look
Is
at
he?
their
He's already signed
projects?"
up for the class?
He's on my Patreon channel, and he's working on. I can't. I don't want to say much about what he's working on, but he is working on his own thing right now. So he wrote
Yeah.
into me to ask those questions.
Yeah. Um, I'm going to set up an exclusive Facebook page just
Hmm.
for invite only for people in the class. And that's really a place for us to share whatever we're doing, wherever we're working on with everybody. And I will be giving feedback on whatever
Mm.
they want me to. Sometimes
Heard
they
that.
don't, and that's cool too. But if they do want feedback, that's where I will give it. But I also like it that we also have other like-minded community
Hmm.
involved. And you don't just get one opinion on something. So that's why I wanted to create a group setting. And it's very flexible too. Yes, there are 3 Zoom calls. I don't know how long they're going to go. I'm very flexible with it. Um, but if we have to have a personal Zoom call, just him and I or whatever, that can be worked out also because there's going to be people at different levels with
Hmm.
different in what because I've done classes before, so I know the different levels that can come in, and some want more, some are more like, I'm doing fine with just so it's really up. I'm very flexible with it. It's when I love teaching when I'm teaching, and it's you know I'll stay forever. I
I
shouldn't
didn't.
say that. No, it's very limited. Okay.
No, I like that, and I'm in the same boat, dude, because it's like you go from being the student, not so much the teacher, but like as you've done things for so long, it's really cool passing on the shit that somebody took time for you. You know what I mean? It's like always pay it forward, right? Because there's so many people that I could sit here and say had such a direct reflection, and why I am the way I am in the food industry is because of an amalgamation of people that I got to learn up underneath, you know?
Right.
So giving
Right.
back to what I've learned from them. Like I'm going to tell you everything that I did to get in trouble, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to give you the good, I'm going to give you the bad, and
Right.
it's up to you to decide which one you want to do. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's a lot more fun. I almost said funner. It's a lot more
And
fun to do that.
can I just say that I had an opportunity to be in one of Richard Williams' master classes
Oh
in
wow.
person. Yeah. And after that class, and I took this notebook. I was going to show it but I have this filled notebook because he would draw things and say this and this and this, and then you're like trying to replicate what he's drawing and breaking the joints and doing the walk cycles and then like 2 years later that book came out and it had all that stuff. But there was a huge difference in being there with him
Hmm.
saying this stuff as opposed to reading it in a book, which I read books like crazy, so I get a lot of information from books, and nowadays I get a lot of information from YouTube channels and stuff. Um, so it all works together, but having a direct interaction with somebody and you can ask questions, and that's really that's really great. I mean, it is like a mentor. But yeah, I feel like okay, I'm in my age where I'm able to mentor, and I love what I'm talking about. So yeah,
You got
just
to see some really cool shit too, Joe.
what's that?
I said you got to see some really cool shit too.
I've had this. Yeah, I've seen some cool shit. Yes, and I can tell stories. Yeah, I know. I used to. It's funny when we did the Rocko special. And Nickelodeon, we had a few veterans that were around on Rocco, but most of them were young. And every morning we would eat cereal and watch a Rocco episode.
Oh,
And
that's so cool.
yeah, it was so fun. But then we turned off the episode and they were like, Uncle Joe, can you tell us some more stories about the 90s? About working on Rocco? Well, there was the time when Doug Lawrence came to work in his pajamas. Let me tell you this. I've got many, many stories to tell. And
What
they'll
was your
probably
go-to
seep
cereal?
into the Zoom calls. I'm sure they will. And the thing I'm saying, I don't want to be like, if I don't want the Zoom calls to have to be the Zoom classes to have to be all about independent film. We have to just talk about it. If you guys have questions, if they have questions about the shows, I'm totally happy to be talking about it. It's fun. Some of it, like I said about Camp Lazlo, is a little painful, but I'll know when to stop. But I'm thinking it's going to be fun. I think we're going to have a good time with it. So.
Oh, I know you guys will. What was your go-to cereal during this time?
You mean when we were
Yes.
eating cereal and watching?
Yeah.
I think I was just eating. I don't know, whatever. Nickelodeon had on each floor they had a little commissary kitchen area, and they would have
Mhm.
all these cereals in a dispenser. You just put your bowl in it, and it goes. That's what
Yeah.
happened. Get lots of SpongeBob money. I I told him you should name this building the Steve Hillenberg building because I'm sure SpongeBob paid for all of this.
It's the house that SpongeBob built.
It is. No, they're just bleeding money out of that place. But anyway, so I don't even know. I think Cheerios. I think I was eating
Oh,
Cheerios.
really? God, your life is so full of color when it comes to your animated films, and then your culinary
And
choices
then
for
I'm eating
cereal is so
Cheerios. The
bland.
least I could do is eat Fruit Loops.
I'm a Captain Crunch guy myself. I'm a man.
I used to
I
love
used to hate
Captain
them.
Crunch. But actually I only when I during the 60s they would do these 3D baseball cards, and I was into collecting them. So whatever cereal they decided to put a 3D baseball card in, I would eat it. It didn't matter
Yeah.
what cereal. You choose your cereals in the 60s based on what you were going to get in the box. I mean, come on.
Words to live by, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Bastic Bomb wanted to know. This one is we talked a little bit about this the first time we had on, but I thought it was a pretty cool question. So we won't go super deep because like I said, it's a deep question. But what's your process behind creating slash animating characters in a way that gives them life? So is there something that whenever you're trying to breathe life into these characters and you're trying to make them go from two-dimensional to three-dimensional with soul and heart and all that stuff, is there one aspect that you like focusing on a lot more than maybe another aspect when giving life to a character?
There's lots of elements that you can do, but imperfections are what first comes to mind.
Hmm.
The imperfections of a character is what really stands out. And when you know that you're open to interpretation of perfection, um, but the quirks of, you know, and you see it in people around you. So there's usually I was actually just talking about this in a video for my class, but each of the characters that I've ever created have a part of me in it,
Mhm.
and so I know how that works, how what kind of makes someone make a decision, and your characters make decisions. And after, if you've been with them for a while, they start making their own decisions. It's really creepy. But but you can also see people around you that have these kind of similar personality traits, and you can kind of pick up on their little nuances, and it's the details too. It's the details of how they approach the conversation, how they constantly scratch their nose, you know, something obsessive. You know, like
Mhm.
Filbert was so full of obsessions. And
Uniquely them.
pardon me?
Uniquely them.
Yes, yes. And you'll see that in anybody. There's nobody, there's no DNA that's exactly the same. So every nuance gives life to it. And and sometimes you don't even pick it up consciously. Sometimes your subconscious is picking it up. I have a character in my film uh, that always scratches his butt. He's a little just the butt cheek, not like,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's always doing it. I don't know why. He's got some skin condition. I don't know what's going on. But he does it, and he'll be like, especially like when he's in deep, like there's three characters there. I call them pygmy mammoths. Okay, and they live in this Norse forest. It's very odd. But there's this little one who's kind of the one that always falls down, and they always converge, the three of them, and we're going to work this out, right? And every time they're in converging, you always see the little one like scratching its butt. Also, I think something trying to figure something out gives them an itchy butt. I don't know, but you don't know. But those little things are saying this guy's a little odd, right? Everything is working towards uh, your character. Also is, it's there for a reason. If it's in a serious situation, it's there for the chemistry of the stories, of the overall concept of the series. Everything that you do works towards that. So even if you, and a lot of people say, well, you know, Rocko had a lot of non sequitur stuff in there. Yeah, it did, but it was not for no reason. It was not, there was a reason for it because it would show usually the oddity of the character. Heifer, you know, or Filbert had their moments that were just like, what the fuck, you know. But you have to understand that that you're still building the character, and that character trait will play itself out within the story,
Mhm.
because you will see, because this character did this. It's just like in a horror film, or in a film where a character can be a villain, they always kill somebody horrifically that you don't care
Mhm.
about, so that you care about a person that you care about around them, because you know what they're capable of.
Mhm.
Same thing happens in humor, because uh, you always, I love this story with Gene Wilder with Willy Wonka. He said when he was hired on to do that movie, he came up with the idea of when Willy Wonka comes out looking like he's disabled, and then he ends up doing a somersault, and
Mhm.
ta-da, because that sets up that you can never trust anything he says
Yeah.
or does for the whole film. So that's another thing with characters within your story, within, you know, so any trait, anything that you're doing is building towards that, uh, what could be done later, and that character. in itself. Does that answer that question?
That did
And
give them
and
uniqueness.
yeah, and then there's emotion too. In emotion of shows that it's living, breathing. It's not one dimensional. It's deep. It's deeper. So putting in that texture, I like to call it texture because you don't just have a character who never gets afraid and never is sad, is never, those you connect with. And that's the relatability of a character because you're connecting the human traits. You're saying within yourself, I know how that feels. You know, even when the coyote falls off a cliff, you say, I know how that feels.
Yeah. When you were explaining giving them elements and quirkiness, you know, have you ever not realized you do something until you see your kids do it?
Yeah,
You ever, so
yeah,
I didn't know I do this until I saw my youngest boy do it. So whenever I get really frustrated, like I try to like relax for just a second, but I'll sit there and I'll go, fuck, or I'll just, do something like that. And then I put my hat back on. And
yeah,
then I was watching my my youngest son Cooper. He was, fuck man, maybe 18 months, 20 months old, something like that. And he's playing, we got in these like little magnet toys where you can build stuff, like triangles and shapes and all that shit. So he was building something and then he got too heavy on one side, so it kept flipping over. So I hear him go, and so he starts building it again because that's where it starts with me. Like if I start getting really frustrated, because I got a short temper, short fuse, so I
yeah,
try these little steps so I don't blow my shit later down. And I didn't know that I did all of that. So I'm watching him and he's going, and then he's messing with his hair. And then I go, hey, did you see, like my wife, I'm like, hey, you see Cooper? He's getting all frustrated. She's like, yeah, he's you. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, you do the same shit whenever you're getting frustrated. This is like all of the steps to you losing your shit. And I'm like, no, it's not. And then I'm walking past the mirror and I'm frustrated as fuck. And I'm like, oh, God. And I stop and I go,
yeah.
oh, fuck. He got it from me. So that's what I took from sometimes it's not
But that's
consciously.
why, as a parent, you have to realize the power that you have over this
Yeah.
young mind because up to age 7, they are establishing a majority of what they're going to be like
Hmm.
and what they're going to learn. And it's wet cement. So,
Yeah, it's that whole nature nurture thing kind of throws it out.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, no, they learn everything from you, good, bad, or indifferent.
yeah. And one of the things I've learned living in Belgium, there's a collective
Mm.
belief that comes down through generations. And someone will say, because I see it with my in-laws and I see it with my wife, they believe a certain thing that's different from what we believe in America. All right. So you question it sometimes. And and you'll say, where does that come from? Well, I don't know. My parents taught me that. And then I'll go to Oma and say, where did you learn that from? I don't know. Well, my parents, I think, taught. Where did they? What is the origin of this? There's no origin. There's an origin somewhere, but we don't know what it is. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Have you ever thought about that? And I'm sorry to say, in America, yes, there's a lot of that as well.
Hmm.
But we don't question it sometimes if it's been handed down and handed down. And kids will also question. My son questions everything. Like he's like, my wife goes, keep your elbows off the table. It's bad manners. He
Oh
goes, why is
my
it bad?
God.
Why is it bad manners? It's just bad manners. Why? What's wrong with putting your elbows on the table? I don't know. I just my mother used to always, keep. So I did it. The great thing about you can Google it, right? What is the origin of keeping your elbows off the table? So this may be a fun fact. I don't know if you know this. Back in medieval times, to eat a meal, you would just take a big, huge plank of wood and put it on other wood, and you would eat. And then when you were done, you'd take it off. If you put your elbows on the table, the whole plank for everybody would go, and all the food would fly off.
No, I just thought my granny hated elbows on the table because she would
Yeah.
slap your elbows
Okay.
off the
So
table.
so listen, this is really good. So they start saying keep your elbows off the table, right? So as people got more prosperous and income started rising and started becoming an incessant, you didn't put your elbows on the table because that meant that you were a lower,
Yeah, lower
you weren't
class.
as developed.
Yeah.
And that's really how it came across. That's really how it handed down collectively as you don't put your elbows on the table. Isn't that crazy?
Well, now I can tell my kids that because they asked me because I up until you said that I'm so glad you brought up the elbows because I would do it, through as a kid and my granny would come and knock your elbows off the table. We don't do that. And I
Yeah.
was like, why? And she goes, we just don't do that. Now I
Yeah.
can
We
go and
just
tell
don't do
my
that.
kids when I tell them to
Yeah.
do it,
And
don't
a lot
knock
of
the
people
table
don't,
over.
but these kids these days are really questioning everything. They question, why do you do that? Why do you do that? I like your Charlie Brown.
Oh, thank you. That was my birthday gift from my wife and kids. I'm really big fan of one, the color yellow, but two, anything with Woodstock. He's my favorite character
Oh
of
yeah.
all time. I love that little bird. No, it's always fun seeing and hearing those. Like I can't remember what which phrase it was, but I was like, why do we always say that? And just going and Google. I'm hoping half this shit is right whenever I Google it. But long story short, it's always good to have kids that question shit because you push the status quo, especially now. Like we talked a
Yeah.
little AI, they're getting videos out there where you don't know, like you can see some things, right? You're like, all right, that was definitely AI just because of how the body landed, yada yada yada, But it's good to have a questioning mentality. Like as a parent, you get upset like whenever you're trying to do something quickly and your kids ask you why. I'm like, because I fucking said do it. Just all you got to do is just brush your teeth. That's why we do it, right? And then you
Yeah.
stop to think like, shit, you shouldn't do that. You should kind of give them a little bit of an explanation because I need a little bit of an explanation whenever we're doing something because I retain it better. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
I love having like, even though they always do it at the most inopportune time, it's like just trying to get out of the fucking door. Why we got to do this? Because we do. So it's always good to just explain it a little bit, and it's always good to ask that question why.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you don't, but also I feel it used to be like when you watch the news, when there was this television, back when there were only three networks back, I used to watch Walter Cronkite. If Walter Cronkite said it, you believed it, right?
Hmm.
And now it's, you can't believe it. Like
Can't believe shit.
Oma and Opa, the in-laws, will watch the news and they believe everything that they see on the news, but they'll question everything that my son is watching on YouTube as it's fake. I said, I'm sorry, Oma, but that's fake too. So not all of it, but some of it is. Some of it is, but the thing about YouTube, yeah, you can put any information for clickbait on there
Hmm.
and people will watch it and people believe it. And that's scary. But I think
Oh, it is.
our new generation does not. I feel like that they're more, they understand that you
Yeah,
can't.
I hope so.
I think a lot of them do, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I
But
just hope they keep up that questioning mind because if there's anything we need more so now than ever, it's just like the why is just pulled out so much. Like I said, my mom,
yeah,
I'm guilty of it. Every parent's guilty of it. My mom would just do it, do as I say, not as I do,
yeah,
type of thing. You know what I mean? So it's cool seeing that come back. Even like I said, even though it happens in the most inopportune time, it's
right,
always good to have that questioning. Like, is this real? Is this gonna hurt me? Yada yada yada. So,
right.
all right. Um, this one's fun. Brandy Review wanted to know, is there a specific character from all three of your shows that you've worked on that you feel very proud of color palette wise, as in their visual design was memorable right from day one? Does anyone stick out?
Color palette wise.
Hmm.
I make a joke a lot about that. I used to have a blog that people would go to, but and I would write something really deep, and then somebody would always respond with, "Dude, why is Leo blue? Like, what's that about?" Um, and then I always had something. There were color stylists on my show, and they would say, "Why do you hate pink so much?" I don't know why. I don't hate pink. I just would prefer not to have something pink, but they can be coral. That's okay. Or vermilion. I like vermilion. I think vermilion's my favorite color. I don't
Gotta go
know.
with vermilion.
God, that's a hard one. I like Filbert's colors. I don't like Rocco's colors. I liked his shirt, but not his colors. Um, the Camp Lazlo ones were always because they had their uniforms on, so there wasn't a lot that I felt like you could do um, with changing up their colors into. But what I used to always say, um, because I used to do this deliberately with the lead colors, I wanted to have brighter than the other colors because I wanted them to stand out in a scene, so their colors would pop. And that was originally with Rocko and Heifer. They were going to be bright because Heifer's bright, like a golden yellow and a red and red pants,
Mhm.
and his green hair. I always loved his green hair. That's an answer to it. But Rocko was originally yellow, like I was talking about, and so they
What yellow? What
he was like a more of a lemon yellow.
lemon yellow? Okay.
Yeah, and then when his color got changed, it really fucked everything up. I didn't.
Dickheads.
And that toy company didn't even end up doing anything with Rocco.
Is there any art out there that has his original color on there?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to go and Google some of that because I just know Rocco. I mean, he's up there. All three of
Yeah.
them. I mean, they're right next to Captain Planet and Hong Kong Philly,
Yeah,
right
yeah, yeah.
there.
I see
Um,
Twinkie. That's cool.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah, 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 no, and we did the pilot with Yellow
mhm.
Rocco, and I have a bunch of those cells.
Well, shit. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm just dumb and I don't fucking remember, but I'll have to go back and check it out because, like I said, that yellow's my favorite color of all time. So getting to see that is
But maybe
pretty
that had
cool.
to happen so that we had SpongeBob, who was yellow, and that's cool. So
Damn. Even before Steven was Steven and making Sponge Boy ahoy, he was locking down that color. Yeah, man, I wonder if that was like a huge reason of why I like yellow. Fuck, you might have just unlocked something, Joe. I'm gonna have to unpack this shit later.
conspiracy
And
theory, Steve
I just need
sabotage.
the X-Files theme song right here. All right, last one. Um, this one's a lot of fun because his name's come up a couple. Both of these guys' names have come up a couple times. What was it like working with the two storyboard artists named Derek Dryman and Mark O'Hare on your shows? Would love to hear stories about them. You got any fun Derek stories and Mark stories?
Derek, boy, well, both of them are genius. Both of them are amazing. Mark O'Hare was my co-producer on Camp Lazlo, and he was so awesome. Um, brilliant, brilliant mind. Him and Steve Hillenberg were a storyboard team. We had
Hmm.
we had four teams, and it would be the director and the storyboard guy, but they would always share the boards. And so the Mark O'Hare, Steve Hillenberg boards were always the best. They were so fantastic. So a funny story about Derek, because he had a he had a roommate who he was just out of school, and his roommate came in to find a job on Rocco, and she was showing me his portfolio. And Derek decided to come along, and his roommate was like, "I know you're not going to accept me. I know it's just going to be another one of those interviews where they're going to say no to me." And I'm like, "What the fuck? What is going on here?" And and Derek comes up and he's sitting there with I don't know why, but he, he's like Mr. Happy compared to Mr. Sad. And I got I started talking to Derek and I go, "Are you an artist?" He goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, I went with it. Can I see your work?" Because he seems so like positive.
Chipper. Yeah.
So Mr. Sad went away. I dismissed him. And Derek he had brought his portfolio, and his really cool stuff. But the thing I loved about Derek was his attitude about life. He was just so like, yeah, this is cool. I love this place. I love, I love this. I love this show. I love, you know, he was so positive. His energy was so great, but his work was also really good. But I hired him as a cleanup artist, and he soon was plussing these drawings every single
Mhm.
time. His stuff was funny, like he had stuff. So I upgraded him to a storyboard artist, and I forget who he was working with. I think he ended up. I think Mark O'Hare had to leave because he had a comic strip. He got some. That's a whole nother funny story. Okay, I don't know if we have time for this, but this is a funny
Well,
story,
we've got plenty
Mark,
of time.
because this just shows Mark, okay, because he's brilliant. Um, so Mark is working on the show, and he had come from Cool World. He was working on Cool World and with Ralph Bakshi, and so he came over, and so he started working with us, and he was brilliant. And on the side, he loved comic strips, and I had done the comic strip route, and I got rejected. I had a stack like this of rejection letters for my comic strips, right? And just rejection after rejection. But in hindsight, I wasn't meant for comic strips. But they were also going downhill with, the industry was waning, and so he starts showing me his comic strips, and I say, yeah, these are pretty funny, but let me tell you, this is a rough road. I'm just gonna just warn you. I've got rejection letters. I've got a lot of you just be braced for rejection. You go, oh, okay.
You were that sad storyboard. You were that sad storyboard artist, and Mark was Derek when you were interviewing.
The first, so I don't know, how much you know about comic strips, but you have to go through a syndicate
Mhm.
that would that would sell your comic strip to the newspapers. And one of those syndicates was United Features, who also did Peanuts.
Mhm.
And the first syndicate he sends it to buys it. And he comes to me and he goes, hey, Joe, just want to let you know.
Not that hard.
Yeah. So he says, I need an agent because I need to, So he goes to the agent that Steve Hillenberg ended up using for SpongeBob, who Matt Groening had used for Simpsons.
Mhm.
She's like one of the top, and she's bloody wealthy now. But so he goes to her, and so she goes, "Well, why don't we? This is the first syndicate that you. Why don't we see if any other syndicates want to start bidding on it?" And so and sure enough, they start bidding on his comic strip, and Universal ends up getting it, who did like Calvin and Hobbes, and they were big. Far Side, they were big. So he ends up doing this comic strip. It is so funny, and we always laugh at that because like, oh yeah, just be. Hey Joe, guess what? Because he was always had a big smile on his face. But anyway, so he did a comic strip, which was great. But like I said, the industry was shrinking and the newspapers were shrinking, and so he ended up stopping after a while because it wasn't paying the bills. But he had a really good deal at first. So yeah, Mark O'Hare. He was so fun to work with. And Derek moved up the ranks fairly quickly, and then he became the right-hand man of Steve on SpongeBob. And what a talent. He was, and it was just so funny that it was kind of by accident that he came working on Rocko and then met Steve and see how things go. And he has since gone on to lots of amazing things.
Yeah, I found him out when I first started the show. He would post when I first started this show about 5 years ago now. I think we just hit 5 years, maybe this week or next week. I can't remember. But I was just scrolling through Instagram and he was posting all of his doodles on his post-it notes. And I go, these are so fucking cool. And then I'm just scrolling through because it was during this time. So it was a lot of like Frankenstein. Frankenstein, the movie, is my favorite of all the Universal monsters, but he was doing a lot of Frankenstein's monster, a lot of Creature from the Black Lagoon, that type of shit. And I just start scrolling. I'm like, this is a lot of SpongeBob stuff, right? And I'm just scrolling. I Google his name and I'm like, oh, well, that makes fucking sense. He's worked on damn near everything when it comes to SpongeBob. And then a couple weeks back, I had Eric Weiss on because we were talking his new Peanuts special that just came out on Apple Plus. It's not an ad, ladies and gentlemen, so I apologize. But we were talking about his film, and then he was talking about working with Derek on SpongeBob, and I got to hear a lot of stories about SpongeBob, man. But it was really cool just seeing how somebody's career can just take a right turn and just go through the roof. And like I said, his artwork is phenomenal. So shout out to Derek and Mark, and thank you for sharing those stories. So Joe, this has been a blast. I'm glad you decided to come back on the show, man, because it's always a pleasure. I don't get what's the word I'm looking for? I don't get to say thank you enough to everybody I get to have on the show, man. But like I said, thank you for everything you do and you continue to do for animation. You're pushing animation into a very good spot. Whether it's independent, whether it's with a company, man, as long as we have people like you that's carrying the torch, I know animation is going to be just fine. So thank you again.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's
Nah,
it's
man, I appreciate
it's
you.
always fun to talk to you.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. Well, that's been Joe. I've been joining Spin the Cartoon Chronicles podcast, and this has been another piece of your childhood. Good night. Uh, at some point.